Hello, and welcome to Beach Variety, Artist Block. I'm your host, Jefferson Denham. We are sitting down with two graphic designers who are both currently facing the challenge of going to school online during a pandemic. As always, on Artist Block, we are finding out how bright young artists are navigating their way through any blocks they may face, through social, political, or economic challenges. So our first guest is an up-and-coming graphic designer who is just about to graduate from Laguna College of Art and Design, Daniel Rangel. Thank you for joining us here on Artist Block. We're so happy to have you here.
Thank you.
All right, can you tell us a little bit about who you are? Who are you, my friend?
Hi, my name is Daniel. I am 22 years old, and I'm a senior graphic design student at Laguna College of Art and Design. Like you said, graduation is just around the corner. I'm very excited about it. My family's very excited about it. I'll actually be the first in my family to graduate from college, so that's something I'm really proud of and really looking forward to. And I actually come from a big family. I'm the youngest of 5 brothers. My family is really supportive, really tight-knit, and they're really encouraging of my dream to be a graphic designer.
This is beautiful. All right, so you said you're the first from your family to graduate college. So tell us about your journey as a graphic designer.
Sure. So I first got into graphic design in high school. I went to a charter school that had a STEM curriculum, or actually it was STEAM, because they incorporated art. So it was science, technology, art, and math, and engineering. So my school offered one of 2 pathways, design or engineering, and I decided to go with design since I wasn't all that good at math for engineering. But that's where I really began to explore the arts. I did fine art stuff like painting and drawing, but what really piqued my interest was digital design on the computer and using programs like Illustrator and Photoshop to make digital art. So that's what really got me started with graphic design.
I love that. So who or what has given you the inspiration to make it to where you are now? Is it the earlier teachers, or is anybody along the way, especially as a first-generation student, as you said?
I have actually a number of people counting on me to make it all the way through college. A lot of people who have given me their support, people who have made sacrifices and contributions that have brought me here. And have dramatically changed my life. And these people are not lost on me when, things get difficult or when I feel like giving up. I'm obviously talking about my parents or, connections I've made, even the people I know in high school that helped me get to the college that I wanted to get into. College can be hard. We're going through a crazy pandemic. But I just remember all the people who have helped me get to where I am now. And that just keeps me going. So I don't want all those efforts to be for nothing. So,
right. Well, you mentioned the pandemic, as we're all going through, especially challenging for students. So we're almost a year into it. Hopefully, we're about to merge out of it. What does a day in your life as a graphic design student look like during this pandemic?
So a day in the life of a graphic design student now is very different from before the pandemic. Obviously I don't have that commute anymore. I used to commute to school, so I guess that's something good to happen out of the pandemic. I guess on a typical day, I wake up late. I am most productive at night, so I tend to work pretty late, sometimes till 3 or 4 in the morning. So I get started, really late in the day. And after that, I guess, I get out of my sleeping clothes, make a quick breakfast, which is lunch by this time. But I walk over to my living room where I do all my design work now, and I just open my computer and start working. Everything I do happens on my computer now, class, meetings, collaboration work, whatever. And my studio classes are 6 hours long, which was actually bearable, right? It was actually bearable when we had class in person, but now it's just 6 hours of being on camera. And on some days I have 6-hour classes back to back, so I never look forward to that. It's definitely exhausting, very different, not as social or inspiring as before the pandemic, that's for sure.
Yeah, and now did you say you got out of your sleeping clothes and into your student clothes? So basically You're in that long commute to school from your bedroom to the living room? All right, well, I thank you for articulating that. I think that's, it's just the reality of how so many students are going through. And I bet it's, it's quite an interesting time, to say the least, for you as a student. So let's take a look at some of your graphic designs in this very short video.
Hi, my name is Rangel, and I am a graphic designer.
This is my artist's showcase.
I first got into graphic design in high school. I remember first getting to work on a computer, and I just thought it was amazing. So the pandemic has affected the way that I do graphic design, mostly because I don't get to go to class physically and receive that feedback that I would otherwise receive. That connection with people and my professor, just calling them over to take a look at my computer and take a look at my work. It's just not the same, on an online call. So I'd say it's definitely impacted my ability to receive good feedback and input.
My typical day as a graphic design student has changed drastically since the pandemic. I used to commute to school and catch up with college friends. I would participate in class critiques for our design work and generally enjoyed getting to be in different spaces throughout the day. But now I'm bound to my apartment and my laptop, and all my design work, interaction, and feedback happens on my computer. So now on a typical day, I wake up, get dressed, fix a quick breakfast, and sometimes I walk around my building just to keep lightly active and to mentally prepare for long hours of class on Zoom.
One of my favorite projects was a packaging project where we had to think of a new product and totally redesign it and apply our style to it. I remember having to do a bunch of research on Pizza Hut specifically because that's the company that I chose to redesign a product for, and really look through their current products, their style of packaging, and think of a new way to put a spin on their products. But we also printed our digital design and had to physically construct it and create the product. So that was really exciting to see your digital work come to life that way. I feel being a minority has forced me and my family and others that I know that are also minorities to find different solutions that aren't always mainstream. I feel like being a minority and a Latino will help me in my future design career, just as it has in other areas of my life. I come from a big family who's been really supportive of my design career for one. It wasn't really seen as a career choice to my parents, but nonetheless, they've been very supportive of my decision to pursue it.
This is my artist's showcase.
When we come back, we will discuss how Daniel has overcome some creative blocks throughout his career. We'll be right back. All right, so we saw some of your projects as a graphic designer student, but what would you say you are most proud of?
I think I'm most proud of probably an infographic I created called The Nixing of Netflix. The infographic centered around Netflix and the emerging field of streaming services. So it basically highlighted Netflix's dependence on licensed content and how the companies that own that content had plans to launch their own streaming service that would rival Netflix in the future. So I remember taking 2 weeks just to do research and collect data on Netflix's most streamed shows, how many of those shows were original, how many were licensed, and who those shows belonged to, and what streaming services in the future they would belong to. So I think at the time, actually, Disney Plus was just about to launch and Apple TV Plus had recently come out. So it was definitely exciting to be doing a project that felt like it was happening in real time. And it was definitely also one of the biggest projects I've done to date. It was really challenging to have to communicate so much information and have it make sense visually. But I was happy with what I came up with in the end. So, yeah.
Yeah, the art world, for those watching, I think you might know this, it's not as easy as it looks.
No, it's not.
So tell me, who or what is your biggest influence to your artistic style?
I would say I am really inspired by design that is modern, definitely design that is clever and sleek. I'm definitely influenced by international style design. I like the cleanliness of it. I like the bold use of color. I like the use of geometric shapes and typography. I'm definitely inspired by the Bauhaus, so much so actually that I created kind of like this alias for my design work, Rangel House, which is just like my last name with the word house from Bauhaus. Because at the time I couldn't decide which type of design I wanted to pursue. I kind of wanted to be a design house that did everything. But anyway, now I'm really focusing on UI UX. So I apply my inspiration to this area of design now.
And it'll probably keep unfolding as you go, right? And so,
that's right.
As a first generation student, what would you say is the most challenging struggles that you've endured or experienced during your college career?
I think one of the biggest struggles for me as a first generation student was definitely cultural. It has been having to explain to my family and have them understand, the weight of my schoolwork. I used to live with my parents and older brothers a couple of years back. And like I said, we were a very tight-knit family. And since we are a big family, there was always an event to attend on the weekend or, somebody's birthday throughout the week or spontaneous outings or whatever. And it was our custom to always do these things together. Because we were taught that, family comes first and nothing comes above that. And that's big in Latino culture. But it came to the point where I would clash with my dad and my older brothers when I wouldn't be able to join my family on a night out because I had to finish a presentation for the next day or, pull an all-nighter or take a whole weekend to finish a project. They felt it was a disrespect to them, even though I would literally stay home and work on my computer for hours on end. It's not like I went out and partied on my own or whatever, but it became a problem having to explain to my family that I simply couldn't join them on family outings because I had too much work to complete. And it felt impossible to explain to people who have never experienced it for themselves. At one point I remember telling my dad and my brothers at the dinner table, we were having a pretty heated exchange about it. But I basically told them, you're not the ones who are going to be standing in front of my professor tomorrow, embarrassed not to have a completed piece of work. And after that, they definitely became more empathetic and understanding. But I definitely felt alone for some time in that experience of being a first generation student.
Yeah, you're a trailblazer. I mean, and you're exploring elements of life that it was not familiar to them, but you're showing them that this is what's possible. I think that's pretty cool. Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
In 10 years, I see myself living comfortably. I see myself being happy, working somewhere that inspires me to be creative and allows me to have a great work-life balance. I just want to be in a place where I'm doing really well and I can look back and, be proud of how far I've come.
Gotcha. Now, what would you tell, given your experience, what would you tell people with a similar background as you who maybe they don't think they have what it takes to be a graphic designer, which could be true, or they may not be getting enough support? What kind of advice would you give somebody like that?
I would say if the passion is really there and the hunger for it is really there, try it. I think people don't know how capable they are of doing things until they actually give them a try. When I first started, I created the design for a t-shirt contest in high school. I wasn't all that confident at the time that I had what it took to be a graphic designer, but it brought me here. So now my answer to that is different. And so if you don't think you have what it takes, then just try.
Right. Hey, well, what if somebody watches this now? They're inspired and they say, "Okay, I want to go to college now," and I might be the first generation, just like you. What words of advice could you tell yourself just entering college, knowing what you know now?
I think I would tell myself to relax more. there was definitely a lot of pressure, going in, being a first generation college student. There was a lot of intimidation, feeling like I wasn't good enough as a designer. And there was a lot of imposter syndrome, seeing, a lot of other people that didn't look like me, and, comparing myself to others that had come from, art schools and had more design experience. But now knowing that I'm okay, I think I would benefit from relaxing and being more confident in my abilities.
Wow. Daniel, thank you so much for your time answering these questions. And I hope that people out there are inspired by your answers as much as we were.
Thank you.
When we come back, we'll meet another graphic designer, Valerie Bravo, and hear about her artistic journey. Valerie Bravo, thank you for joining us here on Artist Block. We are very happy to have you here. So what's your story, my dear? Can you tell us a little bit about who you are?
So I'm from Orange County. Similar to Daniel, we both went to the same high school, so we kind of have like a similar background. I was also in the design pathway at our high school, and I didn't really know much about graphic design when I had first started, but I had a really cool teacher, and he really inspired me in many ways to develop my skills. So I had a fun 4 years developing my skills, and now I'm a fourth year in college. I'm also first generation, so it's been a wild ride, but I've been enjoying it.
What I love about what you just shared too is that teachers can have such a profound influence on the trajectory of our life, and you had a good teacher that saw a spark in you, and you discovered things about you that you may not have known about. So can you tell me about your particular journey? You said you're first generation, like Daniel is as well, to becoming that graphic designer, deciding this is what I want to be.
I actually had a rough first year of college. I originally was majoring in business and entrepreneurship, just because that was kind of the major that my parents wanted me to follow. And I kind of had this crisis of, do I want to follow my own dreams, or do I want to follow my parents? And so I was a business major, and then I was a environmental studies major. And then I finally talked to my advisor, and I had told her that I had gone to study graphic design in high school, and she kind of pushed me to believe in myself and take that leap of faith. So I started a little bit late in my college career, but I've been really enjoying it, and that's something that I want to keep doing for my career after I graduate.
And your passion, you may have seen Jim Carrey gave a commencement speech once, and he said something like his father took the safe route to be an accountant or whatever, and then he lost his job. He says, Jim Carrey said, I think you're kind of embodying this philosophy too. Hey, if I'm going to take a chance on anything, why not take a chance on myself and what I'm passionate about, right? So, all right, now we are almost a year into COVID, as you know, and we're hopefully about to emerge. So same question as I posed to Daniel, what does a day in the life for you, Valerie, look like as a graphic design student?
So I've been better at managing my time, but I usually start off by waking up, and I tend to wake up a little bit earlier before class just to finalize my assignments and just prepare for the day. I just hop on Zoom, and if it's a critique day, we work on critiques, or I just work on my projects, and I have breaks here and there. But for the most part, I have a pretty strict schedule with my classes because they're studio classes. So I have a long time to spend in them. So I kind of have adjusted to my workflow and doing things that way.
Got it. And disciplining yourself during a pandemic, I'm sure, is difficult, as it has been for so many students. So I bet it's quite an interesting time for you, to say the least. So let's take a look at some of your work, some of your graphic designs in this short video.
Hi, my name is Valerie Bravo. I'm a graphic designer and this is my artist showcase. I feel like I've always been an artist ever since I was a kid. I think in the most recent years when I graduated high school and I moved to a new city was when I finally was able to be more creative and allow myself to have more of a sense of freedom when it came to creating art. I've always liked drawing and painting and fashion and rearranging my room and like making it my sanctuary. I would say that in the most recent years when I graduated high school and I moved to a new city was when I was able to actually become an artist and truly believe that I was one. I gave myself that freedom to create and have that creative outlet that I didn't have growing up. I think the main reason why I got into art was because I needed an outlet to express my emotions and let my feelings out. I don't tend to be the most talkative person when it comes to my thoughts and how I feel on the inside, so creating art was a way for me to express those inner thoughts that I had that I didn't have anyone to tell about. It was a way for me to be myself without any judgment from the people in my life. It also gave me a time to reflect and create things that I wasn't creating before, and it was cathartic. It just feels like your own little world, and I really like that feeling. A typical day consists of me logging into Zoom and going to class, and usually depending if it's a critique day or if it's a work day, it really just depends on the day. But recently we've been doing a lot of projects, so it's been mostly critiques and working on our stuff and going to office hours and getting feedback from our classmates, and then just developing our ideas as we go. The pandemic has affected the way I do graphic design in many ways. I know I wasn't used to online class like anybody else. I was used to going to class and having my professor in class with me and looking at my work in person. But now it's at times very cold when it comes to critiques, and I think people are still getting used to being on camera, and I'm still getting used to it. It's a little nerve-wracking being on camera and also trying to do your work, and it's at times a little frustrating that your ideas don't usually translate. So it's been a wild ride. My favorite graphic design project that I've done has been the experimental calendar that I made in 2019. This was the calendar for 2020. I obviously didn't know that 2020 was going to be the year it was, but this calendar was meant to be a celebration of women and womanhood, and I wanted to just include women of all diverse backgrounds, and I wanted to kind of celebrate the people that they are and their achievements that they've had.
Love it. Love your work. Okay, so we saw some of your projects as a graphic design student. What is there one in particular that you're most proud of?
I would say I'm most proud of my 2020 experimental calendar. I think that was one of the projects that I really pushed myself to do something that I wanted to, because I have a habit of not really following the project guidelines. I'm very like experimental with my work, and I do like to do things my own way. So luckily I had a really supportive professor at the time, and she kind of just really allowed me to just go for it and just express myself through this calendar. And I made it with the intention of it being more of a visual piece, because it's not very, you can't really use it as a calendar. So I kind of bended the rules a little bit, and I created something that I was really proud of.
But how awesome to have a professor that's willing to encourage that, because that's what you would hope professors would do for you, right?
Yeah.
So this is a similar question than to one I posed to Daniel. What would you tell people with a similar background to you who doesn't think they have what it takes to be a graphic designer? You had some starts and stops. You were second guessing yourself. What advice would you give someone who was in a similar position?
I would say to just believe in yourself. I know that's like super cliche, but I think part of like the struggle is that you don't believe that you can do something like that. And I think it's important to just trust yourself and your skills, and also just to surround yourself with people that push you to just be yourself and just do your work, and also keep you humble and grounded, because at times you kind of get lost, or I got lost with my feelings, and I felt like I wasn't didn't fit in with people or like didn't fit in at school. So I really just surrounded myself with people that reminded me that I have some talents and that everything's worth it and I should keep going.
I love that. Choose who's in your tribe and make sure that they have your best interests at heart and that they want to encourage you to be your best self. That's fantastic advice. Let's go into the Wayback Machine. We're in a time machine now, Valerie. What words of advice would you tell yourself just entering college?
Oh, I would say maybe, I don't know. It's been a very wild ride. So I would say to just, I don't know. I've grown a lot as a person since I graduated high school. I think I have gained a lot of confidence in myself, and I don't know. I would tell myself to be more excited about the future and more optimistic because I feel like I wasn't really living in the moment, and I was kind of just worried about what was going to happen and like my anxieties about my decisions in college. So I think just living in the moment and embracing it as it comes is really helpful. Just, I don't know, be present in the time.
Living in the moment is great advice for younger you, present day you, and for all of us. Valerie, thank you so much for your time answering these questions. I hope that people out there are really inspired by what you've shared. I am definitely inspired. Thank you, Valerie, for being with us.
Thank you.
All right, so that's all the time we have for today. I'd like to thank our guests, our very special guests, Daniel Rangel and Valerie Bravo, for joining us today. Thanks for watching Beach Variety Artist Block. I'm Jefferson Denham.